All right. Welcome back, everyone. Was Bushrangers Outdoors, I think.
Bushrangers Outdoors, yeah. Bushrangers Outdoors, located in Gailton, PA. Get your next hunting or fishing gear from Bushrangers.
Catchy.
Yeah, it gets right to the point. So, Gailton, Pennsylvania.
Gailton, PA.
Does that location ring a bell for you?
Oh, yeah, Gailton. It's north central Pennsylvania, tucked away in what they call the Pennsylvania wilds.
Pennsylvania wilds.
Yeah, and they call it that for a reason. It's dense forests, rolling hills, and, when you're talking about fishing, you're talking about Pine Creek.
Pine Creek, which is known for its wild trout.
Wild trout, huh?
Yeah, so we're talking brown trout, brook trout, even some golden rainbow trout.
Golden rainbow trout?
Yeah.
Now, that's a catch I'd like to brag about.
Oh, yeah, very rare.
Yeah, so this Bushrangers place is basically smack dab in the middle of...
Prime fishing territory.
Yeah, prime fishing territory.
Absolutely. Well, the Pennsylvania wilds are also known for their abundant deer population.
Okay.
And you've also got black bear, wild turkey.
Wow. Well,
It's really a haven for big game hunters, but
Okay.
the terrain can be challenging.
oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Dense forest, steep hills.
So not a place for someone who wants to, like, stroll through a field?
No, you got to be ready to work for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
All right. Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive.
You excited for this one?
This one is really cool. It's unique. Someone wrote in, and they want us to talk about fly fishing for trout in Pennsylvania.
Right.
But with a twist, we're going to be focusing on the winter.
Nice.
Yeah. So we've got a bunch of different articles
Yeah.
from anglers who've done this before,
Right.
online shops that are gearing up for it, and even a conservation
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah, that's a good mix.
Yeah.
Gives you the how-to and then also the bigger picture of what's going on out there in the ecosystem.
I like it. So really what we're trying to find out here is, first and foremost,
Yeah.
is winter fly fishing in Pennsylvania worth it?
Yeah. Is it even
And if so,
possible?
what are the things that we need to know
Absolutely. What are the must-knows
to do it?
if you're going to be successful?
Okay. So first things first.
Yeah.
Is this even possible?
Right.
Can you actually fly fish for trout in PA when it's freezing outside?
You absolutely can. There's a dedicated group of people who enjoy year-round trout fishing. And Pennsylvania actually has a number of specially regulated streams that allow it.
Wow. So are these streams just like open season all the time?
Well, a lot of them are artificial lures only, so that's
Oh, perfect.
perfect for us fly fishermen.
Yeah, that is perfect. Okay, cool. So, but one of the articles I was reading mentioned something about catch and release.
Yeah.
So do you have to throw them back or what's the deal?
Yeah, you bring up a good point. You absolutely have to pay attention to that because certain streams will have catch and release periods to help protect the trout population.
Oh, okay.
So it is crucial. Before you even think about casting a line, you need to check those local regulations or the stream side postings.
Okay.
They'll be very specific about the sections of stream that are open and catch limits.
So it's not just a matter of bundling up and heading out. There's a little bit of homework involved.
Always.
But okay, so let's say we've done the homework.
Right.
We know where we can fish. We know what the regulations are.
Yeah.
How is winter fly fishing different than, let's say, spring or fall?
Well, one of the things that came up over and over again in these articles is the peace and quiet.
Oh.
Less people are out there braving the cold.
So less competition.
Less competition for those prime spots.
Yeah. That does sound kind of nice. Actually, I can see the appeal there. It's like your own private fishing haven.
Absolutely.
But I imagine the fish themselves aren't exactly jumping for joy when it's, 20 degrees out.
You're right. That's the thing you have to remember about winter fly fishing. You're not going to be able to use the same tactics and flies that you would during the warmer months.
Okay.
The sources really highlight that you have to adapt.
Okay, I'm ready. Hit me with the secrets.
All right. The biggest thing is you got to keep moving.
Keep moving.
You can't just assume the trout are going to be hanging out in one spot.
Okay.
Cover more water.
So even though it's winter, it's not just about finding a nice comfy spot on the bank and
Right.
and waiting for them to come to you.
You got to go find them. They're still trout. They're going to be where the food is.
Gotcha.
And then once you find some promising water, vary your retrieve speed.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to experiment with slow and normal retrieves to see what entices a strike.
So they might still surprise you with their speed even in the cold.
You never know.
Yeah.
And what about fly selection? Any winter favorites?
Yeah, that's my next question. So what are we
Uh-huh.
throwing at them?
Nymphs are your best bet.
Nymphs.
Yeah.
Okay.
They imitate the aquatic insects that trout feed on year-round.
Right.
A couple of these articles really talk about nymphing techniques.
Nymphing techniques.
Yeah, so like suspending a multi-fly rig below a strike indicator in slower pools, or like a tight line nymphing if you're fishing some faster flows.
So I've been hearing about that tight line nymphing or Euro nymphing.
Yeah.
Is that something that would be particularly helpful in the wintertime?
It is. A lot of people are starting to do that.
Mm.
And the thin mono rigs that you use in Euro nymphing actually help reduce ice buildup on your guides. And anyone who's fly fished in Pennsylvania in the winter knows ice can be a major headache.
I bet. So it's not even just the fishing technique itself. It's thinking about those adaptations that you need to make for the environment
Absolutely.
to be successful.
Yeah.
That's cool. I like that. Like a little problem solving.
Yeah, for sure. So another thing that kept coming up is you got to be adaptable and willing to experiment.
Okay.
When the bite is slow, switch up your fly sizes and patterns.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think you always need tiny flies in the winter.
Yeah.
But while smaller nymphs can be effective, don't be afraid to use the same flies and sizes that you'd use in other seasons. One article said start with like a size 14 or 16 nymph and then adjust up or down based on how much weight you need or what feels right.
So don't overthink it.
Yeah,
Just because it's winter doesn't mean you have to reinvent your entire fly box.
exactly.
But it's good to have a range.
Absolutely.
Okay. What about specific patterns?
Oh, yeah.
Any standouts?
Yeah, they talked about Griffith's gnats,
Okay.
bullywuggers.
Bullywuggers.
Always a good bet.
Yeah.
Prince nymphs, pheasant tails, even egg patterns.
Woollybuggers classic.
Yeah.
I've definitely had luck with those in other seasons.
Yeah.
So that's good to know that they can be just as effective in the winter.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And actually, one of the sources had a whole chart of recommended flies
Oh, wow.
based on the hatches in Pennsylvania.
Should we get into that?
I mean, we could, but I don't want to overwhelm anybody. It covers the entire year.
Okay. Yeah, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, I think it's more valuable to focus on the hatches that are actually relevant to winter fly fishing.
Oh, okay. Good point. Let's narrow it down.
Yeah.
So which hatches should we be thinking about if we're going to be braving the cold?
Well, one of the first major hatches of the year is the little black stonefly.
A little black stonefly.
Yeah.
I like the sound of that.
Right.
When does that start happening?
Mid-February.
Oh, wow.
And it runs through mid-April.
Okay.
So it's one of the first things to really get those winter trout fired up.
Okay. The little black stonefly. So if we were going to target that hatch, what would we be using?
Well, you go with a black elk hair caddis.
Black elk hair caddis?
Yep.
What size?
I would say anywhere from a 12 to an 18.
12 to 18.
That's a good choice to imitate those little black stoneflies. It's versatile. You can use it in a variety of situations.
Okay. Black elk hair caddis, 12 to 18. Got it. Anything else popping up in the early spring that we should know about?
Absolutely. Another really important one is the little blue-winged olive hatch.
The little blue-winged olive, what is that, the BWO?
The BWO.
Yes.
I've heard about this one.
Yeah, it's a favorite among trout anglers. It runs from March 1st to April 30th.
Okay, so right after that, little black stonefly.
Yep.
Okay. And what are we throwing for the BWA?
So for that one, you're going to want to use a BWO parachute pattern.
BWO parachute.
Okay, and you're going to want to go with a size 18 to 22.
Oh, so we're getting a little bit smaller.
A little bit smaller.
Okay. All right, I'm taking notes here.
BWO parachute size 18 to 22. Okay. So we've got the little black stonefly, we've got the BWO. Anything else going on in March that we should be aware of?
Yeah, actually, there's another one that starts in March. The little black caddies hatch.
The little black caddies. Now, are these like all happening at the same time, or is there some overlap?
Yeah, there's definitely some overlap. So the little black caddies actually starts on March 1st, and it runs all the way to May 20th.
Wow. So we've got a caddies hatch overlapping with the BWO hatch.
You got it.
Okay. That's good to know. And what do we use for the little black caddies?
You can actually use that same black elk hair caddies.
Really?
Yeah, but in slightly smaller sizes.
Okay.
So I would say 16 to 18.
Okay. So it's good to have a range of those black elk hair caddies flies
Absolutely.
in your box.
Yep.
It seems like they're a real workhorse for the early spring.
They are.
So we've got the little black stonefly, little black caddis, BWO. What comes next?
All right, so moving into April, we have the Quill Gordon hatch.
The Quill Gordon?
It happens from April 1st to the 30th.
The Quill Gordon.
Yeah.
Okay. No, it's the fly choice for that one.
You're going to want to use a Quill Gordon fly.
Okay.
Sizes 12 to 14.
Okay, so back to the bigger sizes.
Yep.
Makes sense. I guess the insects are starting to get a little bit bigger as the weather warms up.
Right.
Anything else happening in April?
Let's see. There's a couple of interesting hatches that actually overlap in mid to late April.
Oh, okay.
So first we have the Red Quill hatch, which runs from April 10th to May 10th.
Okay, the red quill.
Yep. And for this one, you'll need a red quill fly in sizes 14 to 16.
14 to 16 red quill. Got it.
Yeah.
And what's the other one that's happening around that same time?
The other one is the Granum hatch.
The Granum.
And that one also runs from April 10th to May 15th. And for this one, we're back to the elk-hair caddis.
The elk-hair caddis is back.
Yeah.
Really proving his versatility there.
It is a very versatile fly. And I should say, too, these hatch dates are just guidelines.
Yeah, of course.
The actual timing of these hatches can vary depending on weather and all those other factors.
Right.
So it's always a good idea to just observe what's happening on the water and adjust your fly selection accordingly.
So be present.
Be present.
Pay attention.
Always.
Okay. So we've covered a few key hatches there for late winter, early spring.
We have.
But before we get too deep into fly selection, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about trout behavior.
Okay.
In the winter, what makes them tick in those cold conditions?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let's unpack that.
Yeah, let's get into the minds of those winter trout.
Absolutely. Well, the first thing to remember is trout are cold-blooded.
Oh, okay.
So that means their metabolism slows down when the water temperature drops.
So they're not as active in the winter?
Not as active, and they're definitely not as aggressive as they are in those warmer months.
Okay, so they're kind of in like energy-saving mode?
Exactly. They're trying to conserve their strength.
Makes sense.
Until things warm up again. And because of that, they're going to be really picky about where they hang out.
So they're not just going to be everywhere. Okay, so where should we be looking for these energy-conscious trout?
One of the key things to remember is that trout need oxygen to survive.
Right.
And cold water actually holds more dissolved oxygen than warm water.
Okay. So we're looking for well-oxygenated areas.
Exactly. And within those well-oxygenated areas, they're going to be looking for spots that offer cover and access to food.
So like structure, rocks, logs, undercut banks.
Exactly.
Places where they can kind of hide out and ambush their prey.
That's right. Those kinds of areas provide a sense of security for the trout, which allows them to conserve energy while still being in a position to feed when the opportunity arises.
So it's all about finding that sweet spot where the oxygen is good, there's plenty of cover, and there's food readily available.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like finding the Goldilocks zone for winter trout.
I like that. So we've got to use our observation skills
to
find these places. What are some clues that we should be looking for?
Well, the current is a good place to start. Look for areas where faster water meets slower water.
Okay.
Or where the current flows around an obstacle and creates a pocket of calmer water behind it.
So like those little eddies and seams where the current seems to swirl and change direction?
Exactly. Those areas often hold trout, especially in the winter.
Okay.
They provide a break from the current so the fish can conserve energy.
Gotcha.
But they're still in a good spot to intercept food.
So even though it's cold and they might be a little bit sluggish, they're still opportunistic.
Absolutely. They're always looking for an easy meal.
So we want to make our flies look like an easy meal.
That's right. That's why presentation is so important, especially in the winter.
Right, because they're probably not going to chase a fly.
Probably not.
If they don't have to.
Nope. So you want to present your flies naturally.
Okay.
Drift them along those seams and eddies.
Okay.
Make them look like easy pickings.
So those nymphing techniques we talked about earlier would really come in handy here.
They would.
Because they allow you to get those flies down deep, right in the strike zone.
In the feeding zone.
And present them in a way that looks natural.
That's right.
Okay, so we've got the water conditions.
Yep.
We've got the trout behavior.
Yep.
We've got the fly selection.
Right.
We've got the presentation.
It's all connected.
It really is. It's like a puzzle, and we're putting all the pieces together.
It is, and that's what makes fly fishing so fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
It's a constant learning process.
Yeah.
It's a dance.
Between you and the fish.
Between the angler and the fish.
That's right. So you mentioned earlier that one of the sources talked about how winter fly fishing can actually make you a better angler.
Oh, yeah.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely. So the idea is that when you're fishing in those tougher winter conditions,
right,
you're forced to pay attention to the little things.
Okay.
You have to slow down.
Yeah.
Observe the water really carefully.
Really think like a fish.
Yeah. You have to think like a fish.
So it's almost like a crash course.
It is.
In observation and adaptation. Because you have to adapt to be successful.
You do. And you become more aware of those little clues that can lead you to the fish.
Like what kind of clues?
Well, the water temperature, the current speed, the insect activity, the way the light hits the water, all of that stuff becomes more important.
Because it's not as easy.
Exactly. So you have to really pay attention.
Okay. And so you develop these skills.
You do.
This heightened awareness that can then help you in any season.
Right. It's like you're developing a sixth sense.
For finding fish.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of experienced anglers say that some of their most memorable fishing trips have actually been during the winter.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You would think that the coldest, most challenging time of year
Yeah.
would be the least appealing.
Right.
But for some people, it's actually the most rewarding.
It can be. It's definitely a different kind of fishing experience.
It's more introspective,
Yeah,
more challenging,
it is.
but ultimately more rewarding.
In its own way. Absolutely.
So it's not just about how many fish you catch.
Nope.
It's about the journey,
The journey.
the challenge,
The learning experience.
the connection with nature.
That's a great point. And that actually brings us to another really important aspect of winter fly fishing.
Oh,
And that's the ethics.
yes. Ethical considerations.
Exactly. We talked about the regulations earlier.
Right,
But we also need to think about the fish themselves.
right. Especially when they're already dealing with the stress of winter.
Exactly.
Mm.
So what can we do to make sure we're fishing responsibly
And sustainably.
and sustainably?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, one of the most important things is to handle the fish with care,
Yeah.
especially in that cold water.
Hmm.
Their slime coat is more easily damaged when they're cold
Right.
and stressed.
So wet hands, rubberized nets, minimal handling,
All those best practices
all that good stuff.
are super important in the winter.
Even more so.
Yeah. And whenever possible, practice catch and release.
Yes.
Especially during those times of year when it's required by the regulations.
And even if it's not required. Releasing those fish unharmed helps ensure that there's going to be healthy trout populations for years to come.
Absolutely. For future generations of anglers.
So thinking about the big picture,
Thinking about the big picture.
it's not just about us,
It's not just about us.
right?
Okay. So, handling the fish with care,
Yep.
catch and release.
Catch and release.
Anything else we need to keep in mind?
Well, we also need to respect the spawn.
Right.
We don't want to be fishing in areas where the trout are spawning.
Which for brown trout and brook trout, that's typically in the fall.
Yep.
So we want to avoid those areas
We do.
because we don't want to disturb them during that critical time.
Exactly. It can disrupt their reproductive cycle
Right.
and have negative consequences for the population as a whole.
So it's about being mindful of the ecosystem.
Exactly.
We're not just there to extract fish.
Right.
We're guests in their habitat.
We are guests. And by practicing ethical fishing, we can help make sure that these trout fishing opportunities continue to exist
Yeah.
in Pennsylvania. I like that. All right. So we've covered a lot of ground here today.
We have.
We've talked about the challenges and rewards of winter fly fishing in Pennsylvania.
We have.
We've gone deep into the minds of those winter trout,
I've-
understanding their behavior
Yeah.
and how it changes in those cold conditions.
Right.
And we've even talked about some of the ethical considerations of fishing during this sensitive time of year.
Absolutely.
Hopefully we've inspired a few people to give it a try.
I hope so. It's such a unique experience.
Yeah. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to go back to something we touched on earlier about how winter fly fishing can actually change the way you think about the sport.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
So one of the articles was talking about how the challenges of winter fly fishing
Yeah.
can make you a more well-rounded angler.
I like that.
When you're forced to slow down, observe, really think like a fish in those colder conditions.
Yeah.
It can sharpen your skills and make you appreciate the sport even more.
It's like a master class
It is.
in observation and adaptation.
Exactly. So you become more attuned to those subtle cues that you might not even notice
Right.
on a warm, sunny day,
Right.
like the water temperature, the current, the insect activity.
Absolutely.
And all of a sudden, those things become super important
They do.
when the fishing is tough.
Because the fish aren't as active.
Right. So you develop this awareness, that
Yeah.
deeper understanding of the ecosystem, and
Yeah.
that can make you a more successful and ethical angler
Absolutely.
year-round.
Year-round.
It's like winter fly fishing unlocks a new level
Yeah.
of skill and appreciation for the sport.
It does.
And that's something that stays with you
It does.
long after the ice has melted.
It changes your whole perspective.
Yeah. So while it might seem counterintuitive
It does.
to choose the coldest months to go fishing,
Right.
there's actually a deeper logic there, a
Absolutely.
depth of experience that goes beyond just casting a line.
For sure. And that's what makes this deep dive so interesting.
It really is.
We've gone beyond those surface level tips and tricks
Right.
and really uncovered a whole world of knowledge and insight and philosophy,
It's true.
all connected to fly fishing in the winter. We've explored not just the how, but the why.
I like that.
And in doing so, I think we've discovered something really special.
A richness and complexity
Yeah,
that will appeal to any angler,
absolutely.
no matter what their skill level is.
Right.
Or what season they prefer to fish.
It's a universal truth about fly fishing.
Okay. So with all of that in mind, I think it's time to wrap up this episode.
I think so too.
But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay. All right. So we've talked about all the practical stuff. Gear techniques, hatches, even those frozen guides.
Yeah.
The icy conditions.
And the fun stuff.
But beyond all of that, there's something almost magical about winter fly fishing.
Yeah.
That's hard to describe.
There is. It's like the whole landscape becomes part of the experience.
Yeah.
The stillness of the water, the snow-dusted banks, the crisp air.
And in that stillness, you really start to notice the little things.
Yeah.
The almost meditative rhythm of casting and retrieving.
It really is different.
It is.
It's more contemplative.
Yeah.
More connected.
It is. And I think that's what draws so many anglers to winter fly fishing.
Yeah. One of the articles you sent me just described it as a pilgrimage for the soul.
Oh, wow.
A chance to escape the noise and the distractions
Yeah.
of everyday life.
Absolutely.
And reconnect with something deeper.
Beautiful way to put it.
Yeah. And I think it speaks to the broader appeal of fly fishing in general. It's not just about catching fish. It's about immersing yourself in nature.
Yeah.
Challenging yourself. Finding a sense of peace and connection.
And that's often missing in our busy lives.
It is.
And winter fly fishing, with all of its challenges and rewards,
Yeah.
it kind of amplifies all of that.
It does. It requires a different level of commitment.
It does.
A willingness to adapt.
For sure.
And a deep appreciation for the natural world.
It's not for everyone,
It's not.
but for those who embrace it,
Yeah.
it can be a truly transformative experience.
It can. And that brings us to our final thought for you today.
Okay.
The question we want to leave you with,
Wait.
as you continue to explore
Yeah.
this world of winter fly fishing in Pennsylvania.
I like it.
So we've shared the expert insights, explored the practicalities, delved into the deeper meaning
We did.
of this really unique pursuit.
Absolutely.
But ultimately, the most important question is this.
Okay.
What will your winter fly fishing story be?
Hmm.
What will you discover about yourself,
Yeah.
about nature?
About the art of fly fishing.
When you venture out onto those cold, quiet streams,
I love it.
will you embrace the challenge, the solitude, the chance to connect with something deeper?
Good stuff.
We encourage you to find out.
Absolutely.
And remember,
Tight lines, stay warm,
mm-hmm.
and happy fishing.